Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Square Circle Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Marie Shadows. This episode is going to be a general review of the G1 Climax 34 Night 2 and Night 3 to the best of my ability and what I have here in my notes. The only reason why this is going to be a general review is because right after this episode drops, I will be dropping later on an exclusive podcast episode about Konosuke, because if you guys have not been following me on social media, I became very popular on Threads over the past 3 days now. And the comment section is juicy, fiery, sassy, and then backtracking. So I made it into content and I talked about it and I gave my own 2 cents and my opinion, because it seems like wrestling fans just want to support their guy without even questioning Konosuke. If you guys heard the first episode of me talking about the opening night of the G1 Climax 34, I was not happy with the result of Konosuke just coming into NJPW and destroying Tsuji and having Tsuji get 0 points on the board for opening night. Opening night with their wins and losses to the respect of the wrestlers didn't make any sense. So because it doesn't make any sense, I go to social media. I want to start a conversation. And it seems like people took it the wrong way when I was questioning why is Konosuke winning against NJPW guys when he really doesn't go there and he doesn't have a footprint. So it blew up, and so I will talk about it. And also, just as a reminder, if you head over to marieshadows.substack.com, which the link will be down in the description box below, you can sign up for free for my newsletter to get not only this podcast episode, but the upcoming podcast episode and any tape study series and any wrestling threads that I create. They all go to your inbox. And today is Friday. Every single Friday, we have Wrestle Threads. This is not to be confused with Threads itself, the app that Instagram owns and Meta owns. It's not to be confused with that. So on Substack, they allow you to create forums, which is just a huge public chat forum. I'll start the conversation by talking about what Twitter is talking about or chatting about, what Threads is chatting about, and I create discussions from that. That is what Wrestle Threads is about. Sometimes those topics will not make it onto a podcast episode unless I have something special planned for a special podcast. But for the most time, I'm doing review shows. And for the most part, I go along with what my notes are because I'm reviewing the show for you. If I plan to have a specific podcast episode, you guys would know, and eventually I get to it. So for Wrestle Threads over at marieshadows.substack.com, which the link again will be down in the box, you guys can click it, sign up, because I will be glad that you will be there, because I would love to chat with you and read your thoughts about professional wrestling. But if you are signing up with a Gmail account, just please take into consideration to check and double check and triple check your spam and junk folders, because Gmail seems to always flag any kind of Substack emails if it has way too many pictures or videos, and I am a very visual kind of newsletter writer, so it's not just going to be words that's going to get delivered to your inbox. It's going to be a combination of words, pictures, the podcast episode, and video, depending on what's happening. However, when it comes to just like Wrestle Threads, the forum that I'm talking about, that's all words with emojis inside the words. Not really inside the words, but inside the article, and pictures. So if you are signing up with a Gmail account to marieshadows.substack.com, just make sure to check your spam and junk folders that the email has not got there yet. If it goes to your regular inboxes, you are fine, but please make sure that your junk and spam folders are checked for emails related to the Square Circle Podcast Hub, which, yes, I changed the name again just because I think that now this is a better fit for the overall brand. Let's just leave it as the Square Circle Podcast Hub, and it has different types of categories under that one big umbrella name, and that's way better because this is the Square Circle Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Marie Shadows, and the wrestling newsletter provided by Substack is an extension of that. That's why I created Wrestle Threads, and we are up to issue 3. Issue 3 is going to be talking about NJPW, a little bit about the G1 and Konosuke, and I'm going to be maybe on this one asking you guys if you think that NJPW has an identity. And you can always answer that now, because if you're listening to this on Spotify, Spotify has now incorporated comments. So if you want to leave a comment, if you're listening to this on Spotify, by all means, go ahead. You could always leave a comment over on the YouTube side of things, youtube.com/Square Circle Podcast. So that is one of the main questions that I want to ask my community is, does New Japan Pro Wrestling have an identity? Because I love New Japan Pro Wrestling. I will defend New Japan Pro Wrestling till my heart's content. And right now, New Japan Pro Wrestling, we all can agree that it is struggling, especially trying to create new stars. And AEW is not helping. Tony Khan is not helping. Tony Khan took the stars away from New Japan Pro Wrestling to have it in his sandbox without allowing New Japan Pro Wrestling to either start making stars so that way the transition could be easier and smoother, or give something back in return to New Japan Pro Wrestling, like a trade-off, which, by the way, that's a conversation now that I'm having on Threads, is the trade-off. Like, maybe NJPW wants Konosuke, and I really don't think that's the case, because why would they want Konosuke now? Konosuke would not fit into the New Japan aesthetic, or maybe that's just like the wrong word. Like, the overall, like, I don't think Konosuke is ready to be a NJPW roster member, but also Konosuke is very young in his career, and he needs to go out there and experience different kinds of styles, different kinds of wrestling promotions, and understand that his style of wrestling, which basically what we've seen in the first 3 nights from Konosuke, is like he is made from Superman and Goku combined together, and has unlimited reversals and unlimited endurance, as if he's a WWE created character. And that kind of style needs to not completely go away, but it needs to be adapted, because you can't be that overpowered and still get victories and make your opponent look like shit. The reason for a wrestling match is to have a competition between the two, and not just like a one-sided competition, because then what's the point of that? Because your opponent also trained for many, many years, and then to all of a sudden look and feel and be presented as if like he can't outmatch you or even go toe to toe with you. Because when you have the mindset of you're the wrestler and you have to get your shit in, it definitely disrupts the flow of an awesome match. And I think that most Konosuke fans, if not all, are blinded to that, and they are 100% fanboys, which I go into very much detail in my new episode that'll be dropping later on tonight about Konosuke and how he made me go viral over on Threads. I just think that it's okay to be a fan of your favorite wrestler. I have many favorite wrestlers. And by the way, if I call you a fanboy or a fangirl, do not take it as an insult. Do not get offended. One person got offended, really emotionally offended. And it's like, how come words are so bad like that? You should be proud that you're a fanboy or a fangirl of that wrestler, that promotion, because you'll be their cheerleader. However, you do have to become a realist to a certain degree, because if all you're going to do is blindly praise the wrestler that you love through and through, and that you see no wrong with this wrestler, then that wrestler is not gonna improve. Case in point, Jon Moxley. For all the Jon Moxley fans out there, they are fanboys and they are fangirls, especially fangirls that want him but can't have him, but still act like he is the best and don't see anything wrong. But by you not being real with yourself and being real with the wrestler to help them improve, they end up not becoming memorable, and they have this sort of plateau when they want to get over that. And sometimes it's like the fan is more like, oh my God, you got this. I'll be here. Yeah, let's go. Kind of, giving them that participation, kind of cheering on, when you should be like, hey, this may or may not work, or you could take my opinion as 2 cents if you want to, but you might want to change it up. Nobody has to really follow the opinion that you give to wrestlers to maybe improve. But sometimes if you can see something that the wrestler has not seen yet, and that wrestler goes and tries it, that could be everything to their career, that could turn it around and get them back into the spotlight, get them over the hump of being in a plateau, and then they have a new look and they have a new mentality when going into wrestling. Because professional wrestling is a we thing, it's a team thing. And it's basically all of us brainstorming together of what could be the best thing for wrestlers and fans to come together with. That's why it sort of bothers me when fanboys and fangirls are just one track minded to be like, my guy is the best and you can't tell me different. And when you try to be like, hey, well, this doesn't look right, this isn't good, why is this happening? They get all upset into their emotional and feelings. And it's like, that doesn't help the wrestler, that doesn't help you. So I just make stuff like that to say, be aware, just be aware. And I know I ranted a little too much about that. I'm supposed to be reviewing the show for night 1 and night 2. It's just that I don't really have much to say about night 2 and night 3. I really don't. The biggest story that is coming out of my interactions on social media is Konosuke, because people want Konosuke to win, 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 win. And it gets super boring if your favorite wrestler continues to win. That's not how life is. There are wins and there are losses. But I will say that for night 2, I do have this love-hate relationship about Callum Newman, because there's not a balance. I haven't seen a balance yet of where he wrestles with Shota and wrestles with Sonata. When you wrestle with Sonata, you are wrestling his kind of match. When you're wrestling with Okada, the once wrestling god, because now on Twitter, everybody wants to push the Okada agenda of him saying bitch in a weird accent, and that's, borderline racist in a way, because we're making fun of something that he's trying to improve on, meaning his English, and then people wonder why no other foreigner, when they come to America, does not feel comfortable speaking in their own language, which I get it. It could be very daunting for people to not understand another language, but that doesn't mean that we should just automatically laugh at Okada and be like, oh my God, he said bitch, this is amazing, we got to protect them. The big accounts on Twitter really need to stop that and really need to be like, yo, what happened to the Rainmaker Okada? Huh? What happened to him? The one that was kicking the shit out of the kids that disrespected him, the one that carried the championship titles, the one that carried the company, the one that got screwed over by Gato. Like, where is that Rainmaker Okada? Where is that aura? Oh, that's right. The Young Bucks don't know how to maintain someone's aura because they never experienced that shit. So down the drain Okada goes. But I digress a lot. My point is that when you are in a match with certain wrestlers like Sonata and mainly the veterans that are still there, you wrestle their way. So in this match, it was okay. It was slow. It was typical Sonata match, and Callum was selling his neck, and then Callum tried to get in his shit, and Sonata really didn't want that to happen. Some of the stuff went through and some of the stuff didn't go through. And it's like, you got to find a balance. Even though you're fighting Sonata, who is a veteran, you have to at least talk with him and be like, hey, I know you want me to wrestle your style, but can we do some moves and spots where it puts you over, puts me over, and, you know, I'll do these crazy high spots. There's a way to balance and make a really good match between Sonata and Callum. It was just more so Sonata getting in what Sonata does. Regardless, Sonata gets 2 points for night 2 of the G1 Climax 34. Our second match was Oleg Boltin versus Hinare. This was an okay match. It was two big guys going at it, two strong guys going at it. I think that even though Boltin Oleg is using a lot of his muscle and picking up people and throwing them around and showing off what he can do, I do think for him to be an all-round wrestler, because he's not there yet, all of these new age fans that are 20 and mid-20 needs to understand that just because a wrestler can pick up another wrestler doesn't mean like they are that amazing or that super. Like, what else can they do? How else can they tell a story inside the ring other than, oh my God, look how freakishly strong I am? Do they have a personality? Do they have an in-ring storytelling ability where you're like, okay, I can get invested into this? Sometimes most wrestlers are not put with the right opponent in order to bring this out, but Hinare does a wonderful job of bringing that out of his opponents. Hinare versus Shingo, great rivalry. Hinare versus Gabriel Kidd, great rivalry. Hinare versus Oleg might be a thing in the future, but Oleg, for him to be a all-around person, he needs to start developing not only his own character, which he is developing a character, I just don't know what it is, but using his strength can only go so far, and I really want to see him do more than just picking up people. Him picking up Hinare is definitely impressive because Hinare is a big dude, but other than that, his strength can only take him but so far. What else can he do? What else can he adapt to? What else can he transition into so he can be this all-round person like it is said on Twitter, which he's not there yet, guys. He's not. However, in this match, Hinare ends up getting 2 points. Our next match is Gabriel Kidd versus Great-O-Khan. This one was an interesting matchup. I really want to see more of Gabriel Kidd going after United Empire members because, like I probably said before, that Gabriel Kidd, I now accepted his trash talking, and I noticed that whenever he does the trash talking and the fighting, he brings the best out of his opponents. He really does. I don't understand the Great-O-Khan's booking in New Japan Pro Wrestling. They made him the King of Pro Wrestling champion, which is that baby blue belt. And here's the origin story behind the King of Pro Wrestling championship title. Originally, it was a trophy. Originally, it was created by Okada because Okada wanted something to do during the summer and wanted something the guys to do during the summer. So he created the King of Pro Wrestling trophy. And people have won the trophy. And then it got turned into a belt, I think, when Shingo won it. May or may not have happened that way of like Shingo turning it into a championship title. Shingo had a vision for the King of Pro Wrestling championship title. Shingo is an amazing, smart guy, and I love that Shingo is in New Japan Pro Wrestling because at least he has a vision for something. However, when the Great-O-Khan gets it, it's more of a joke. It's more of a comedic joke, and I have yet to recognize that championship title as a championship title. So I will always disregard it and not really talk highly about it, but because the Great-O-Khan is the King of Pro Wrestling champion, I think that it has done nothing for him other than get him more popular with the Japanese audience, and him visiting schools, visiting libraries. And the Great Okan has an amazing story too about him saving a young little girl in the bathroom of the train station because a drunken guy went in there and bad things could have happened, but the Great Okan comes and saves the day, and then Japanese police took over, and the Great Okan is a hero of Japan by saving the little girl, which is amazing. That's part of his story. The Great Okan's character is him being a Mongolian and doing things that are now, he's a babyface. When he was a heel, it was a lot more better, even though he called all of us peasants. But he is a respectable Mongolian soldier. To the best of my ability that I can say that, because he is definitely a soldier within the United Empire. So I say all this to say, why is he not pushed? The Great Okan is young. Is he not in the conversation about let's push the young guys? Because that's what everybody wants to talk about on social media, is that, oh, now is the time for New Japan to push the young guys. Well, the Great Okan is young. So why is he not being pushed? Just because he has the Kingdom Pro Wrestling Championship title, which again, I do not agree with. I do not accept that as a championship title. The Great Okan is great. This guy can switch up and adapt his wrestling style. And you're telling me that he's not pushed, and you're telling me that Konosuke is way better than the Great Okan? Not a chance. I support the Great Okan. I want everything for the Great Okan because he has put in the work. He is recognized. And the Great Okan, like I said, can switch up his wrestling style from being amateur wrestling to just straight wrestling. And depending on if he's in a tag team, he switches up his gear. If he's not in a tag team, he still switches up his gear. So there's a lot of great details and storytelling aspects. And this guy can definitely be one of the best. But for some reason, he doesn't get pushed the way that he should get pushed. He does have questionable ideas and thoughts, but at least he has ideas and thoughts. You guys can go back into my catalog and listen to me talk about his ideas and thoughts and just basically give my 2 cents into what he said about stuff on Twitter about why foreigners are going over to AEW to get the bag, basically. And it's like, you know, people have different needs. People want to do different things, but at the end of the day, it's at least having a conversation. And that's what I appreciate about the Great Okan, is to have that conversation. And now I'm just rambling at this point. But Gabriel Kidd versus the Great Okan, I want to see more of that. They go wrestle in the crowd, they fight each other, and then eventually Gabriel Kidd does get the 2 points in the G1 Climax 34. Our next match is Evil versus Jake Lee. Just very quickly about this match, I really am enjoying Jake Lee in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He fits so well in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He fits wrestling all the other wrestlers, whether they are foreigners or they are Japanese co-workers. It does not matter. Jake Lee is really great at what he does, and I am really intrigued by him. Evil is going to be evil, because it's evil. What else can you expect? You know that there was going to be shenanigans in this match. You know there was going to be little to no wrestling, which is totally fine. Sometimes you might need a breather in between all the regular wrestling matches, which is quite normal to have. So we have Evil for that, but Evil still keeps it entertained. And so, by way of shenanigans, Evil gets 2 points. Our fifth match is Yuya versus Goto. Now, this was a very, very nice match. Goto is such a veteran that he can have matches with anybody, and it is enjoyable. However, it does get a little tiring. While I do appreciate Goto and Yoshihashi, I still need to take a break from them watching their matches from time to time. However, Yuya is the young guy that everybody keeps talking about to keep pushing him. And I explained in the Konosuke podcast episode that Yuya has to get something needs something. He's missing something, and I'm not sure what it is. But he does have a really good wrestling background. He is very solid. He is very smooth. He has amazing arm drags. The last wrestler in this business to have arm drags is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, which is one of my favorite wrestlers. But Yuya just needs something, and he's not there yet. And for New Japan Pro Wrestling to only push him by him getting the victory over Konosuke in night 3, night 4, something like that. That was the shocker to me, just because it's like, what does Yuya have that Tsuji and Jeff Cobb don't have? So that's what I didn't understand. And then people got upset at me because I'm questioning their one god in wrestling, which is Konosuke. But it's a valid question. It's a valid questioning to seek answers, to seek other people's thoughts and opinions. That what does Yuya have that Tsuji, who had a documentary about him come out on the NJPW YouTube channel, and Jeff Cobb, who is the NJPW TV champion, to get more subscribers to sign up at New Japan World, their network. So what does Yuya have that these two guys don't? Why did Yuya get the victory? He should be celebrating the victory. I'm not trying to take that away from him, but what does he have versus the other two? But back to Yuya versus Goto. Goto can make anybody look like $1 million. I don't really have to go through my notes and be like, oh, this is what they did. This is what they did. It was a very, very nice back and forth. Eventually, I would love to see Goto versus Callan Newman and see how that works out, because Callan Newman would learn a lot from Goto and being taught by Goto. Tama was under Goto's wing before he joined up with Jado, so he learned a lot from Goto as well. And even though Goto is the veteran in the G1 and in New Japan Pro Wrestling, Yuya managed to get 2 points over Goto. Our next match is Shingo versus Shota. And the first thing that I'm going to say is that this was a way better match than Shota versus Callan Newman. That match was the worst. And you guys could go back and listen to how I break it down. And it's not only about just trying to get in 15 minutes of fame. It's not about just doing high spots. If you just want to do high spots, I don't know if the circus is still hiring, but that's the closest thing. Like Circus Soleil, that's the closest thing to do high spots and high spots only. And I don't say that to be mean. I just say it in a very realistic way, where it's like, in wrestling, yeah, you could do high spots all you want, but if we learned from anything, your body yells at you from the constant nagging injuries. Your body is waking up and it's in defense mode all the time, because it's like, why does this body part hurt? Why does that body part hurt? Why is there a bruise here? Oh, we got to send cells to go regenerate that bruise. And yes, you guys give your bodies on the line, and I am very thankful for all the wrestlers that have given their bodies to us for entertainment and enjoyment. But you have to be smart if you want to be in this business long enough to be successful and have your mansions and have your, like, all the cars you want, all the boats you want, all the millionaire stuff you want. You have to be smart. And if you are young and dumb, you're not gonna end up lasting long as a wrestler for a career. And then I'm not sure if you have a plan B. So you have to pick your high spots. You have to pick what you want to do in a match, when you want to do it in a match. Does this make sense? Does that make sense? And all it is just communication. It's not just, oh my God, let me get these high spots in so that way the fans could go, ooh, ah, and then not talk about it or forget about it. Don't put your body through unnecessary risk unless the reward is greater at the end, but there is no really big reward if you're falling off a ladder and falling through tables and just hurting yourself all around, or just doing high spots in the ring where you can slip and fall and bad things happen, or it doesn't connect. So I'm on the side of caution for this. But back to Shingo versus Shota. This is the match that I would tell people to watch when I defend Shota Umino to be like, he has everything. Shota has the skills. Shota knows what to do, when to do it, and it depends on who he's wrestling. And I see that. If he's wrestling someone like Callum, it's going to be a shit show. I'm sorry. If he's wrestling someone like Shingo, it's going to be nice. It's going to be smooth. It's going to be head-to-head combat between Shingo and Shota, and that's what we saw in this match. When Shota was kicking Shingo with all of his might, Shingo got up and started to almost beat the shit out of Shota to show him who's boss and put him in place. But it created such a good friction between the two that this was a really good match. And I would say this is the Shota that New Japan Pro Wrestling needs. This is a Shota that I will defend as a really, really good wrestler. However, I do think that he needs to get out of the shadow of Jon Moxley and out of the shadow of Tanahashi. However, what worked for Tanahashi could work for Shota. It just has to be the Shota way. It can't just be the Tanahashi way. It has to be the Shota way. And then maybe Shota will start coming into his own. If Shota starts putting different colors on his gear, and maybe going through the crowd has helped him, and women and children love him. So I think that if we take that away, that would hinder him. But he does need to find his own character that fits with what we see in the ring. With all that being said, this was a really good match between Shingo and Shota. And in the end, Shota manages to get 2 points and get a victory over Shingo because he does the Death Rider, goes over the cover, 1, 2, 3, and that's it. However, are we still playing up the maybe kayfabe injury storyline or not kayfabe injury storyline of Shota's bad back/hip? Are we still playing that up or not? Our next match is Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr. As you know, in Wrestle Threads issue 2, which I'm surprised that no one commented on or left their thought or opinion on it, which if you want to, you can sign up at marieshadows.substack.com. I will be sending out another single email exclusively to all of my readers on marieshadows.substack.com to remind you guys about the stuff that goes on in the newsletter portion, just in case if you missed the email, didn't open it, because like I said, Gmail accounts end up sending Substack emails, newsletter emails to your junk and spam folder because of the many images and video and podcasting that I put on the newsletter itself. So on Wrestle Threads over at marieshadows.substack.com, it was basically about Zack Sabre Jr. And I thought people would have got mad at me for that because there is a section of fans that want Zack Sabre Jr. as champion, but it's like, what does he have to offer to become champion? Like, what can he sell out arenas? Can he sell out merchandise? Can he bring in numbers and people and ticket sales and anything else in wrestling? I don't know why people want Zack Sabre Jr. as champion. I get it. It could just be an accolade thing. And he is a good wrestler until you figure out that he does the same thing in every match. And if people realize that, then he could be beat. It's just over the past year or like 2 years, his wins against certain people like Jeff Cobb doesn't make any sense because his opponent could walk out just fine, not breathing, not bothered, and really upset about the loss. But then he is heaving for breath. He looks like he's almost dying and ends up having to crawl his ass to the back. So it just doesn't make any sense at all. But this is Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr. And again, it's basically a fast start with Naito trying to do Destino, but it turns into a small package. There's a kick out, and Naito almost got the 2 points over Zack Sabre Jr., almost outsmarted him. And if anybody out there is saying that Naito is washed, He's not washed, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, he's older. He's not as young as he used to be. And we know that he has nagging injuries, such as his knee and other problems with himself. But Naito can still go in the ring, just not as well as he used to, but he can still go. He can still tell a story, and he's probably telling a story, and people are just not seeing the story because they're like, oh my God, he's old. Oh my God, he can't do the Destino anymore. He botched the Destino. Naito, for some reason, has been doing a standing Destino where it does not look very, very pretty. Before, years ago, he used to do Destino right, where he got the momentum and he swung off of the ropes and it looked great. But for some reason, he's been opting to do a standing Destino, and that raises the question of like, why is he doing that? That means that the opponent has to sort of use dead weight because there is no momentum, and use that dead weight in order to make this move come to life. It could be for story, meaning like Naito is telling us his own personal story before he officially retires. And for fans to immediately just jump on the bandwagon of that, he's washed. He's always been washed. He's botching this. He's botching that. You guys have never... You guys may not have been fans long enough, but the moment that you see a wrestler messed up, it's automatically that wrestler is washed, that wrestler botched, that wrestler this, that wrestler that, and that messes with wrestlers' psyche and their mental health. And then fans who love the product, love the wrestler, end up getting into their mind that, oh yeah, maybe this wrestler is washed, without trying to really look at everything that the wrestler is doing. And I really do believe that what Naito is doing is all part of his personal story before he retires. And I think that he's going to go out with a bang at the end of his title reign, and I'm not sure who he's going to drop the belt to. I don't know who's going to win this G1, because this G1 has been all over the place, and not in a good way. If it was in a good way, I wouldn't be making videos or sounding like I'm complaining about the booking and the storytelling and what's going on. So I do think that Naito doing what he's doing is more for his personal story. The way that he's doing a standing Destino, the way that he's losing in the G1, except for when we get to like night 3. But him losing to Zack Sabre Jr. is more of a like, what? How many times have you faced Zack? You should already know what he's about. There's no way that Naito should be losing to Zack, but it's not that big of a deal. If Zack decided to really put something different into his arsenal that Naito has never seen before or never experienced before, and Zack got the victory that way, then okay, that's fine. Zack got 2 points. Congratulations to him. But Zack Sabre Jr. does the same thing in every match. So how can someone like a veteran like Naito that's been in Japan for years and wrestled with New Japan Pro Wrestling and started there, why is he losing to Zack Sabre Jr.? Again, not trying to make it into a big deal, but just to have you think a little bit about story and about progression and about wins and losses, and like when maybe you can have a wrestler take a loss versus not having a wrestler take a loss. And to beat the champion is one thing, because that kind of means that eventually he could end up getting the championship title belt, which maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But he did celebrate with the championship title belt after doing that. And it's sort of like, yeah, I don't think they're going to give it to you. Because like I said before, that all of the accomplishments that Zack Sabre Jr. has under the NJPW banner, they would have given him the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship title long ago, rather than having him have 3 different title challenges and not becoming the winner. So there is something off about that either way. But for this match of Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr., Zack Sabre Jr. gets 2 points. The main event of night 2 for the G1 Climax 34 was Tsuji versus David Finlay. Now, I love both of these wrestlers. I am a fangirl of Tsuji and David Finlay, and I think David Finlay is doing a wonderful job as the leader of Bullet Club War Dogs. I just wish that he had more title defenses for that global heavyweight championship title and actually make it global and go wrestle everywhere and have New Japan Pro Wrestling open to more partnerships rather than just staying where they are. Imagine if David Finlay showed up at MLW. I'll be fucking happy. I'll be fantastic and elated and awesome. That would be great if he showed up at MLW. What if David Finlay showed up at WWE? What if David Finlay showed up at TNA? What if David Finlay showed up at any of the promotions in the United States, even though that's been a thing forever? But you get the idea, right? Like, I really want that global heavyweight championship title to be global, so that way it could be great instead of just feeling like it's a New Japan and Japanese title only. However, this main event of Tsuji versus David Finlay was the best I saw, and this is why I push so hard for Tsuji to be loved and recognized, and that he is the guy and he should be pushed as well and not be stopped in his momentum. When he came back from excursion, he took on Sonata, a former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, and almost beating Sonata and becoming the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. And everybody was on the edge of their seat, including me. And then he holds up the championship title belt. That was an awesome picture. And he has many wins and losses after that, to the point where him, Hiromu, and Teton end up winning the Trios Championship title in New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is the never open weight 6-man championship titles, only to drop it back to Boltin Oleg, Tanahashi, and Yano. How do you stop his momentum like that? And then to really stop his momentum by losing to Konosuke for whatever stupid reason, which no one has yet to tell me the reason. And you do this right after you give him his own documentary series to showcase who he is and why he wants to work with New Japan Pro Wrestling, why he wants to become champion, what does it mean for him to become champion. He wants to be spreading New Japan Pro Wrestling around the world. He wants to be spreading wrestling around the world. All of these motivations, hopes, and dreams that you see in the documentary video on their YouTube channel mean something. Oh, but no, we have to get the newcomer to come in and beat him up. But Tsuji does end up getting 2 points against David Finlay, which I don't agree with, because I want David Finlay to get some points, and I know that he got points against Hinare. But either way, like, this would have been a very, very tough decision on who to get 2 points, who to lose. And because Tsuji lost to Konosuke, I'm guessing him winning against David Finlay was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like an apology. Like, you could get over on a veteran like David. David is the leader of the Bullet Club, but, you know, it's okay. You could get 2 points. It's one of those where they work themselves into a corner, which is similar what AEW does with their storytelling, and they don't know what to do. I would have probably went for a draw for David Finlay versus Tsuji. New Japan Pro Wrestling doesn't focus on draws, but sometimes when you have two of the greatest athletes and maybe you do want a decision, we should end up going for a decision, whether that's like 1, 2, 3 or a tap out. But for something as big as Tsuji versus David Finlay, I would have opted for a draw, and they don't utilize draws as much as they should, but they shouldn't really abuse it and overuse it. But for this one, I would have made it into a draw. And that draw would have been used for storytelling ability, and that's it. Just a storytelling skill, a storytelling beat. It would have not been anything else other than that. So yes, Tsuji does get 2 points. However, I really do overall love the match between Tsuji and David Finlay. So I can't really be upset. I am sort of frustrated with it, but New Japan Pro Wrestling needs to understand that it's okay to use draws at certain points. Okay, we are going to quickly talk about night 3 of the G1 Climax 34. We start out with Shingo versus the Great Khan. That was a cool match as well. Shingo can have very good matches. The Great Khan can have very good matches. You guys already know my thoughts and opinions on Shingo and the Great Khan, respectively. And Shingo ends up getting 2 points in this match. The Great Khan has yet to get any points on the board. And this is where I don't want to, again, talk about his booking. But his booking and story doesn't make sense right now. I don't know why he does not end up pushing for getting pushed, or someone advocating for him to be like, hey, what are we doing? Why is he not getting any points on the board? This is where sometimes you might want to end up doing the draw so that way he can at least get 1. But the Great Khan is really, really good. He has proven himself to be really, really good. But for some reason, he wants to go with this story, which I don't really know what it is, but he gets 0 points. And it's like, I'm cheering for you to be a breakout star in this match, Great Khan, even if I made videos talking about your Twitter tweets. You're still a really good wrestler, and I really do enjoy what he does and brings to New Japan Pro Wrestling and brings to United Empire. Shingo's amazing. Shingo knows this. So yes, Shingo does get 2 points in the opening match. Match 2 was Callum Newman versus Zack Sabre Jr. This, I think I realized what it is that Callum comes in with this chip on his shoulder as if he's the greatest thing to enter into the wrestling ring. Now, there's a difference between being overly cocky and having confidence in your ability. And this was overly cocky with Zack Sabre Jr. trying to get a 1-up on Zack Sabre Jr., which he almost did. It was just technical wrestling, a lot of exchange of kicks, that fast pace, a double drop kick, a catch DDT, a guillotine, more running the ropes, a running missile drop kick, which, by the way, that looked pretty good. That was a good thing that happened. The odds cutter avoided, and then Zack Sabre Jr. does end up getting 2 points, but Callum almost got Zack Sabre Jr. with his own pin combination move, which is the Okana roll into the bridge. So Zack Sabre Jr. did mention that in his backstage comments, saying that Callum was being cheeky, if I use that right. But he also agrees, and I have to agree with Zack Sabre Jr. on one thing, is that Callum needs to stop doing Osprey moves. Callum needs to come into his own character. I don't know how many times I have to say it or anyone else has to say it. And if your coworkers are saying, get out of Will Ospreay's shadow, get out of Will Ospreay's shadow. There is no other way for me to say it. Yes, he could be your mentor. Yes, he gave you a chance. Yes, he brought you over to New Japan Pro Wrestling by skipping the dojo system. And I think that the dojo system would work for Callum in a lot of ways to sort of discipline that high energy style. Now, I don't really like to try to put people into a box or try to slow them down for their own style. But if you know that your high spot work ethic only is not working in a New Japan Pro Wrestling setting, and it is very important to know what kind of company you are working for so you can adjust and adapt and be the best version of yourself, including trying to incorporate the high spots. You got to know who you're working with. You got to know what company you're working with. It wasn't too long ago that I was in a space. Well, I actually listened to the recording of Gabe Sapolsky's space, and one of the big talking points was make sure you know about the company. It's similar to when you go apply for a job. Make sure that's the company that you want to apply for. You know what's going on. You know the deal. It's the same thing in wrestling. When you go to a promotion, yeah, you could go to any promotion. They'll hire you and they'll give you a hot dog and a handshake and you get to have a match and you get to wrestle in front of people. But if you truly want to make a commitment to a promotion, then you have to know what the company is about, what they're looking for, what their wrestlers do. It's not just you. It's you plus them, which equals we. And that sounds like Steiner math, but I bet you it's not Steiner math. It might be Steiner math. It might be Marie math at this point. I don't know. But Zack Sabre Jr. is right that Callum Newman needs to get out of Will Ospreay's shadow, needs to stop doing the stuff that Will Ospreay does. And you could be humble all you want. You could be thankful all you want that Will Ospreay gave you the chance to go into New Japan Pro Wrestling. But obviously, if you don't know the style, if you don't know the company, if you don't know the people in the company, because not everybody in that company does high spots. Everyone is about ground and pound, strong style, muscle, junior heavyweights that do cruiserweight stuff. And you might say to me, well, there's ELP. ELP does a lot of high spots. If anyone ever says that to me, ELP doesn't really do high spots. ELP does a lot of high flying moves, but he also wrestles and he also plays around depending on what his character is. But I've never seen this guy do any type of high spots like Callum. Callum plans all of his wrestling matches with high spots. There's no working a hold. There's no headlocks. There's no, okay, I'm going to do my fast paced running here just to trip up the guy, go into a submission. There was probably like maybe one time he did that, but it doesn't stay consistent or smartly done. It just happens to do it. Improvising is not a strong point in his arsenal. So it's kind of, he goes back to what he knows, which are high spots. And this is what the indies tend to teach young wrestlers, is that it's okay, go out there and do whatever you want. And sometimes it's like, no, you need a little bit of structure, you need a little bit of discipline, and you need to understand how to get the crowd into your match. If you just go out there and do high spots for you, how are they going to enjoy it? They spend $10 to $30 plus more on refreshments if the promotion gives some refreshments to watch your match, and it's just a bunch of high spots to please you, and you think that it's going to be 15 minutes of fame when they record and put it on social media just to help you go forward. No, it's a team effort. It's a we effort, and that includes the fans. So you have to know what promotion you work for. You have to get out of the shadow of others, because what works for somebody may not work for you. I'm just saying. So that's what that is for Callum Newman versus Zack Sabre Jr. Again, Zack Sabre Jr. getting 2 points. The next match was Jeff Cobb versus Konosuke. You guys already know how I feel about it. Konosuke got 2 points. The next match is Shota versus Gabriel Kidd. Now, earlier in this podcast episode, I put over Shota when he fought Shingo because I thought that match was really well done, well put together. I understood it. However, Shota versus Gabriel Kidd exposed the hell out of Shota. And it just was sort of, the balance was weak, if I'm going to be honest. It really showed that Gabriel Kidd has more skill. And I know that Gabriel Kidd has more skill with what he's doing. And I know that Shota has the skill too. But for some reason, Shota versus Gabriel Kidd, I don't know what the fuck is wrong when it comes to these matchups. Shota does very, very well against Shingo and does poorly against Callum Newman and does poorly against Gabe Kidd. And it's like, is it a language barrier thing? Like, I don't think it's a language barrier thing. However, I will give props and flowers for the story that is being told with Shota and Gabe Kidd. And I get it and I love it. Which Shota gave Gabriel Kidd his back during Gabriel Kidd's entrance and only side-eye him. And that's perfect. Keep that going. But as far as the meat, the core of the match between Shota and Gabriel Kidd, man, I'm like, how much longer can I tell people, hey, I'm backing Shota because Shota has a very good all round wrestling ability. And then to see his match with Gabe Kidd, I'm like, what is happening? You can tell that Gabe is a lot more experienced and Shota is not really meeting Gabriel Kidd either at 100% or maybe like 80%. I don't know what it is. He started to tell a story when Shota kicked out at 1 when they were so far into the match. But after that, we had a full-on slap fest, strong style, and see who could go down first. And then we had a gut-wrench power bomb into a pin, and that is how Gabriel Kidd wins to pick up 2 points. But to be very honest, what is this disconnect that Shota has between foreigners and his own Japanese coworkers? And I don't think it's a language barrier because Shota knows English, understands English, maybe not like full on 100% English from English person to English person, meaning American to American or even American to like UK, but he does get it. He does understand. I just don't get the performance issues. That's all. So again, Gabriel Kidd gets 2 points. Our next match is Sonata versus Evil. And it's just a weird match to where Evil thinks he's funny. Evil thinks he got jokes. Evil ended up giving Sonata a House of Torture shirt. And Sonata puts on the shirt. The fans boo. The fans are like, no, this can't happen. And when I say the fans, I mean the Japanese fans in attendance. And apparently, Evil took the mic to say that he's joining House of Torture and we've been talking about this for a while. And again, Evil has jokes, man. It's run its course, but I explained before why Evil does all the shenanigans, why House of Torture does all the shenanigans. Evil is inspired by ECW as well as Jado, Dick Togo, and Gato because they all wrestled at ECW at one point in their career, their very, very early career. And I talk about that in my interview with Devon Dudley. If you guys have not, go check that out. So Evil and House of Torture is inspired by ECW. A lot of those guys are inspired by ECW, so that's why the shenanigans are there. But I also make a point to say that depending on where they are in Japan is when they choose to do shenanigans. More shenanigans will happen more in the suburbs of Japan. So like Sendai and like places like that over there where they're not so heavy into professional wrestling, but they are into professional wrestling, just not as fanatics. Over in Japan, such as Osaka, Tokyo, Kyoto, like populated cities, they know about wrestling and they get it. So that's why they end up not doing so much of the shenanigans there, but they still do it. It's just where they are in Japan determines how much shenanigans wrestling fans see. So if you hear the complaints of the American fans, it's because they want to complain and they don't want to understand what happens and why it happens and where it happens when it comes to House of Torture and shenanigans. So yeah, Evil ends up getting 2 points for him versus Sonata. And for the next match, which this may or may not be the main event, I have Jake Lee versus Naito. Naito ends up getting 2 points, and I think that this is his first 2 points on the board. And Jake Lee is such an interesting character. I am very intrigued. I know I said that throughout this whole podcast episode, but Jake Lee is definitely a good addition to New Japan Pro Wrestling. The way he was laughing like a villain and giving the middle finger to the crowd, it is so great. His character work is amazing. And I can't wait to see what else he does in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He is the anime villain that we need through and through. He's the villain that we need. I just love it. Naito is Naito. And if I miss any match For night 3, I am sorry. I am still on a completely tight budget, and I cannot get NJPW World back for 99 yen. I cannot do that at this very moment. So I am trying to use alternatives to try to watch these episodes and review them for you. If you want to help out in any way, there's always a link to donate me the funds in order to keep these reviews going, because I love talking about professional wrestling. Over the next couple of days, I'm going to be revising my Fourth Wall membership. Fourth Wall is very similar to Patreon, but in my opinion, way better than Patreon, because we can have everything in one setting without too much percentages being taken out of the hard-earned money that comes in through merchandise, that comes in through memberships, that come in through donations. Fourth Wall is creator first, and Patreon is really not for creators first. Patreon is more for if I built a huge following of like 50,000 people, 100,000 people, but I don't have that big of a community. I am very happy with the community that I have. And if you are listening and you made it this far, this message is for you. So if you were to ever want to donate to me, there is always a link to donate to me, or just email me at squaredcirclepodcast@outlook.com, or find me on social media at Marie_Shadows and DM me. And these are just donation funds. You don't even have to do that. You're not forced or obliged to do that. But if you want to help out so I could continue to talk about the correct matches and the right amount of matches for the G1 reviews, then by all means, if you have a big heart, that will be very awesome and encouraged, but definitely not forced or anything like that. Again, I will be revamping my Fourth Wall, which will be the paywall kind of thing, and membership area. So if you want to get in on that to support me and to support the brand, and you enjoy what I have to say, the value that I bring, and the extra content that will be coming your way, such as tape study series, Inside the Locker Room, which is me discussing wrestling terms, where you get to pick a new wrestling term for me to discuss. Be part of the Wrestle Threads discussion over at marieshadows.substack.com. Not everything will be behind a paywall, but the most important stuff will be behind a paywall, because that takes time and effort. And again, I am just one woman doing all of this, from watching the shows, writing everything down by hand, including my notes, doing the podcast episodes, editing it, creating the thumbnails, uploading, creating the copy, meaning I get to tell you what's happening in these episodes in the description, and then letting you guys know you can support me in everything that I do over at Fourth Wall, over at Substack. And when I go live on YouTube and Twitch, I would love to see you guys there and in chat, because without you, there will not be no Square Circle Podcast. And without you, there will be no Marie Shadows. And I am truly grateful and thankful for each and every listener that comes across my podcast episodes. Now, with that being said, just because I use my podcasting platform to talk about my opinions and my perspectives and give you guys maybe a different kind of perspective and a big picture overall thought process about professional wrestling, and just insights of what I know here and there, and sharing my knowledge, you do not have to agree with me. It is totally okay. I'm not going to be upset that you don't agree with me. Just keep it civil and just keep it kind. And if you don't have anything nice to say, well, then you can find someone else to bother, because I rather conversate and try to find a middle ground with people that want to try to understand different types of positions, different types of perspectives, different types of opinions. It is okay. You can agree to disagree with me. That's totally fine. Just know that I am still thankful for you to even chat with me. If you want to provide 2 more cents, if you want to provide your opinion, your perspective, I am grateful for the chat. Please make sure to share this out with a friend. Go tell a friend. And I hope you enjoyed this whole entire podcast episode about night 2, night 3. And again, I'm doing the best that I can to provide you with these reviews, because I've yet to get back my subscription to NJPW World. So thank you for allowing me to still review the shows, even if it's not the full matches, and me just giving my opinion on it and telling you about the G1 Climax 34. Make sure to follow me everywhere on social media. All of my links to be down in the box below. And I am very, 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 very appreciative of everyone here. Make sure to tune in to Wrestle Threads issue number 3, where we talk about Konosuke and more that happened on social media over at marieshadows.substack.com. You should be signed up if you are a wrestling fan and looking for like-minded wrestling fans that want to talk about professional wrestling and keep it all in kayfabe, keep it all in fun. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this episode where I combined Night 2 and Night 3 of the G1 Climax 34 and gave you my opinions on it and updates about other things that I want to create and give to you guys. And I'll see you guys on the next one.